Shadow Generations has just released, like some time ago, and Sega, shocker, actually made a good game. Because it's not like the last few games they've made have been bad in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. Nope. In this exciting adventure, we don't follow the Blue Blur, but instead we follow his gay cousin known as the Ultimate Lifeform instead, on his quest through time to stop the evil bad man known as Black Doom, or to straight up the devil himself, from taking over the world. You know, just like that thing Eggman was trying to do. In doing so, he'll come across some old friends, old rivals, and some places that are a little too familiar for comfort. In addition, Shadow the Cringe Hog will also gain some new abilities that continue to cause him to commit the famous crime of blackmail and be forced to succumb to immense pain that rivals that of getting kicked in the dick by your girlfriend. This is the tale of what many are calling the best Sonic game in quite some time. And honestly, I can agree with them. It's time to see what Sega cooked up for this badass little hedgehog. Can Shadow save the world again? Will he die trying to do so? And will he find his long-lost sister? I don't know. I didn't even know this furry had a sister. And now that I know this, I'm incredibly scared for the implications this is gonna cause. This is Shadow Generations. Shadow Generations is part of the remaster re-release of Sonic Generations, which saw some significant writing changes and some added content. This new DLC-like story mode gives Shadow his own story to follow, that follows a similar kind of progression and gameplay to that of Sonic Generations, but with some Shadow-themed twists to make it more interesting. Following in the same timeline as Sonic Generations, Shadow is warped back in time to relive the ways of his blood-related DNA partner named Black Doom, and it's up to Shadow to relive his past and defeat him once again to stop him from controlling his abilities and mind, aiming to take over the world. To do this, he must traverse through some familiar lands and meet some old friends, and put a stop to the devil himself once more. And since this video is focused purely on Shadow Generations, I will not be covering Sonic Generations during this video, but I will touch on some changes or added content when it becomes relevant. And speaking of content, I think it's time we jump into the gameplay of Shadow Generations, because although it shares many similarities to its remastered cousin, it's got some tricks up its sleeve to make this one of the most fun Sonic games out there. Grab a seat, and let's go. From a gameplay standpoint, both Sonic and Shadow Generations function mostly the same. Both games use the simple Sonic Boost formula as seen in Sonic Unleashed, Forces, or Frontiers, and both games use a mix of 2D, 2.5, and 3D stages. Their stories are fairly similar, as well as their overall difficulty and level designs, although Shadow Generations' level design is a little better in my opinion. The most notable difference is that Shadow has a double jump, and while Sonic doesn't have this, he does have a mid-air spin dash that feels reminiscent of the spin dash from Sonic Mania or the drop dash from Sonic Frontiers, which I learned could fuck you over if you're not careful. So with most of the similarities out of the way, let's talk about what makes Shadow come into his own in this game. This mainly stems from your Doom abilities, and I'm not talking about the Doom Slayer, okay? You'll unlock these powers as you progress through the main story of Shadow Generations, unlocking them by using metal gears on various pedestals scattered across the hub world. These gears mostly come from defeating the major bosses that are found in White Space, the game's hub world. We'll touch on the hub world in a little bit, but for now let's touch on the 5 major abilities that Shadow has access to. The first is Doom Spears, which allows you to lock onto 5 different targets and launch a spear at them. This is useful for hitting switches, stunning enemies in the air, and much more. I'm not going to question why it looks like Shadow is shooting electricity out of his hands, but hey, if you're feeling happy then I guess it works. This also makes sense given that Shadow has held a gun at least at one point in his life, so him having something that resembles him shooting a gun makes sense. Doom Blast is a melee ability that allows the player to send their enemies flying into a direction of their choosing. Afterwards, Shadow will then warp to that location, allowing you to skip a jump, a pack of mobs, or even just to get the jump on another enemy. Or you could just beat them up in place like it's a politician, or just be Will Smith and go to town. Doom Surf is what I would assume to be a skateboard of black tar on Shadow's feet that appears whenever he's on water. I better see you doing some kickflips, otherwise I'm gonna send you to Skate 3 to relearn. Doom Morph will morph you into a giant piece of fudge, allowing you to surf into some snazzy purple liquid known as Kool-Aid, but it's somehow slime. This can help you reach areas that you can't get to through traditional means. Shadow can walk on this purple liquid, albeit very slowly. It also makes a sound that is, well, how do I put this? It sounds like the sounds of you and your ex banging in your mom's closet. You can also grab onto floating purple orbs and swing through the air, giving this ability even more uses. And finally is Doom Wings. This ability functions like Shadow's version of Super Sonic, as you'll need 50 rings in order to use it, and when you do use it, your ring count will slowly deplete, similar to how it functions with Super Sonic. Using Doom Wings, you can fly through the air, collecting rings and skipping large chunks of a level with ease. But you need to be careful, because you need to be collecting rings every once in a while, otherwise Doom Wings will automatically cancel and send you plummeting to your death. Shadow can use his abilities in the many levels throughout the game, in addition to the hub world, like on Chaos Island, where you'll use Doom Morph to traverse the island and its many canyons and cliffs. worse. This is exactly how it felt when I played it in Sonic Frontiers a few months ago. It felt like I was crawling down the Rocky Mountains, or just my crippling posture. Or in Kingdom Valley, where you'll surf through the kingdom's mighty fortresses, attempting to escape from the Shadow X Mephiles love affair. That shit carried over from Snapcube, so you better hope you don't meet Memphis, Tennessee anytime soon. And in Radical Highway, where you'll use Doomwing to traverse the broken highways floating through the sky. As that amazing music plays, holy shit, it's so good, oh my god! And as you'll see later, these abilities can also be used in the game's hub world, to gather various collectibles and items. One other ability that Shadow has access to right from the start of the game is Chaos Control. To activate it, you'll need to fill this gauge by killing enemies, similar to how refilling the boost gauge works in Sonic Generations. Upon using it, everything will stop moving, which also includes the timer, and you'll get around 5 to 6 seconds to move around whilst nothing moves around you. This is actually quite strong in lots of different situations, and the game makes use of it very well. These powers are also used in boss battles, and they play major roles in them too. Like during the Metal Overlord fight, you're going to be using Doom Surf the entire time, and are forced to throw a shit ton of trash at a robot that was made by one Japanese man for a BattleBot boxing match using your skateboard. And even the man himself, Memphis, Tennessee, is here to try and be a living being again. And you're going to be using Doom Morph to surf in his pools of grape Kool-Aid and beat him up for trying to get you to play Fortnite with him and go to the Tilted Towers. In addition, each stage has 2 different acts, one 3D and one 2.5D, just like Sonic Generations, except this time, each act can be completed with or without Doom Wings upon completing the game. Some of these acts are pretty fun with or without Doom Wings, and some are a fucking nightmare. So if you wanted to get destroyed by a video game that probably shouldn't be destroying you, then I highly recommend going to Radical Highway Act 1 and try doing it with no Doom Wings. And the last thing to touch on for gameplay are challenge acts. These will unlock after completing the major stages in a select section of the map and or the story. To progress and defeat the next boss, you'll need to complete all of the available challenge acts to obtain boss keys. These challenges are quite varied and present unique challenges that the player must overcome. These challenge acts are also present in Sonic Generations. However, for Shadow's story, there's fewer variants of them, and there's also a smaller amount of them. These challenges can vary from collecting a set amount of rings, dash rings, popping balloons, or killing enemies as fast as possible before reaching the goal. Some of these require you to reach the goal with one ring, or it's a classic sprint to reach the goal as fast as you can. These challenges feel far more simplistic compared to the challenge acts that are found in Sonic Generations, and I love that they were designed this way. We can't forget the Knuckles digging minigame, or the Blaze ones, cause fuck Blaze. Simply put, the gameplay of Shadow Generations is quite simple, yet it provides a fun and thrilling experience that I feel is better than Sonic Generations. Its Doom powers allow Shadow to traverse the world in ways that, quite frankly, that Blue Hedgehog could never do. And it allows the player to have a lot more fun as they play the game, by allowing them to take shortcuts and speed through levels using these powers. Having challenge acts alongside extra replayability for stage acts makes this a great game to come back to, and it's great for completionists like myself. Chaos Control is also a very handy feature, with it being a great reaction time button if you're in a pinch, or if you want to get to a shortcut or stop your timer to get a better rank. Shadow Generations feels right at home as an awesome Sonic title, and I'd love to continue playing with its quirky and fun features. But no Sonic game isn't complete without its world to back it up, and that's why it's time to talk about the world of Shadow Generations. From its hub world, collectibles, and stages, this may just be my favorite world that I've played in. So, let me tell you why. Shadow's world can best be described as if your dad realized that you wanted to live in your worst nightmare, and so he brought you back in time to relive it, except it's more modern with visuals that are actually good, unlike some games. So let's start with the hub world, or as it's called in-game, White Space. This freely explorable zone acts as the gateway to all of the levels you'll play in Shadow Generations, and it's quite involved and full of things to find. This can include machine pieces, which can be turned into Eggman's robotic friends to build a rocket ship that is totally going to get them out of this hellhole. I mean, if it does, I'll pay them several dollars, just saying. But the big thing you're looking out for is treasure chests. There is a total of 96 different treasure chests around White Space, and to open them you're going to need collection keys. These can be found in every major act in the game, and each act has 3 in total. And yes, this includes stage acts and challenge acts, but it does not include boss battles. These collection keys have different types of symbols on them that open different colored chests, so make sure you have the right key before you travel a mile to open one. And similar to Sonic Frontiers, there's loads of grind rails, springs, and more to use around White Space, and you can collect rings or use Shadow's Doom abilities to collect these items or traverse the open world to get to a level. In a lot of ways, it kind of feels like it's a small slice of what Sonic Frontiers brought to the table, but it's presented in a way that feels much like 2010's Sonic Generations. It works surprisingly well, and it feels really satisfying to play. But with the major world stuff and collectible stuff out of the way, we may as well touch on the stages that you'll be playing in. There's at least a good few of them, each having their own character, sort of, and being written from classic titles in the franchise featuring Shadow himself. So let's touch on them by starting off with Space Colony Arc! Oh hey, it's that thing that shot the piss laser from that Snapcube video. Yeah, Alfred Coleman didn't exactly hit the Earth, he hit the moon. But I can't see the moon at all during my time in the stage, so did he just take the moon like he's Vector from Despicable Me and decide to dip? Being what effectively is a floating city in space above the Earth, I'm beginning to question how and why we as a race decided to do this. I mean, it's not like Earth is advanced in this universe. Have you seen City Escape? I am normally not a fan of levels that are sort of tight and clumped together like this, but this one feels very open, and it feels way more open than it appears to be, which I like. This can also be said for most of the main 3D stages in this game. They feel way more open than you'd expect them to be, which is pretty nice. You can also see Black Doom do his bit where he takes the level and makes it look like you're just on like all of the drugs, which is actually pretty cool looking. So good job on the aesthetics, Sega. The second act introduces you to both Doom Spears and wings, and there's also some weird pillars that you can walk up and down on. I'm not really a fan of the pillars. I can't wait for Shadow to vomit on himself the next time he walks on one. Rail Canyon! Being ripped straight from Sonic Heroes, and given that I never really liked that game growing up, you can imagine what I was feeling going into this place. But it turns out that, yeah, Rail Canyon is a mixed bag for me. They really took the rail in Rail Canyon and made that very clear. Most of this level is mainly Shadow grinding on rails harder than any girl could grind on you, proving that Shadow is a better Rizzler than you. I mean, he's definitely better than me, that's for sure. I just wish that this level had more room for running through the cliffs, akin to something like Ares Island from Sonic Frontiers. I don't hate this stage, but I just wish that Sega went a little more on the freedom side of things. Yes, I'm saying for a Japanese developer to inject a little American patriotism into their game. Is that too much to ask? Kingdom Valley! Oh fuck, this shit's from Sonic 06. This means that it's going to be so broken that I'm gonna have to contract scoliosis and fold it to a ball and cry at how bad it is. But shocker, in a sudden twist of events, it's actually pretty good. I was a little confused with the fact that I was flying on a bird, like this is the bird from Mario 64 and I'm trying to get the cage star in Whomp's Fortress, and the fact that I was grind railing on fucking wind, so not sure how that works. But other than that, this level is actually pretty dope. I like that the level feels pretty simplistic, but it still provides a sense of challenge through its Doom Surf sections, while also want to reroute your dick into your anus, and wall jumping like I'm fucking Super Mario. Although, I'm still waiting for Elise to walk around the corner and want me to carry her, and then have that one cutscene where Sonic just says, "One! Sunset Heights!" Oh fuck, they ripped shit from Sonic Forces 2? Man, why do we have to get levels from two shitty Sonic games, Sega? Like, what the fuck? Also, can we just stop for a second and consider that out of the 6 main stages in this game, that 4 of them feel like cities? What is with Shadow and liking cities, man? Like, what is this? I mean, I know that if we gave him an origin point, he'd probably be from Detroit, given he's held a gun a few times, but still. I will admit that this was my favorite stage in Sonic Forces, and here it feels way better. Out of all of the 3D levels in this game, this one is by far in my top 3. The underground section is by far my personal favorite because it switches the game up and makes you use Doom Spear and Blast together to get to the end. Even the crazy drug-filled section of the level is cool as shit. I mean, who doesn't want to feel what the taste of death feels like in the Kool-Aid Tunnel of Love? Ellis from Left 4 Dead 2 is gonna roll up and make it feel better. I also really like the second act where you're getting shot by a giant robot that replicates what happens when your girlfriend is pissed at you for leaving her to go to your job. I mean, you were probably doing the business with her, so it's pretty obvious why she's pissed. Chaos Island! Wow, they actually ripped one from Sonic Frontiers. I'm honestly surprised that this one is here, because I didn't think Sega would pull from their newest game in the series, but hey, I guess I was wrong. And if you thought that this place was going to be any less confusing than it was in Sonic Frontiers, then let me tell you that you're fucking wrong. This shit looks like a glass mirror that got shattered and the shards are still sticking out, and it's currently experiencing a rough time. There is quite a fair share of different paths to take in this level, all of which usually rely on Doom Morph to get to. So I really hope that you're good with swinging on some balls and flying. No, not like that, you sick fuck. This level is going to test that very important skill. Watch out for the whopping 45-second section of lava, because this was the only part in the level to have it. I really do like the DK-style platforming part at the start of Act 2. They're really making me feel nostalgic for a different franchise. Really cool, Sega. Act 2 really does use Doom Morph to its advantage. Chaos Island is one of the only main areas to use it very frequently, other than in places in White Space, the Mephiles, or Black Doom fights. Oh yeah, and there's also a cutscene in this bit where we see the Shadow fight from Sonic Generations happen in real time. We continue to prove that Shadow and Sonic are somehow in some kind of gay relationship. They just don't show it because they're rivals or something, I don't know. Also, Rouge for sure called Shadow a bitch here. It might not look like she did, but she definitely did. She's his girlfriend after all, so seeing this happen kind of makes sense. The Mephiles fight is, well, it's a fight. You're just using Doom Morph and smashing into him like he wishes to do to his gamer girlfriend. But because he's an alpha male gamer, he constantly finds himself in the friend zone and is never going to get close to doing this. I really do like the part where you spam Doom Spears like it's an automatic assault rifle at what appears to be the orphan spawns of the Grape Kool-Aid. That's totally a worthwhile investment of your time. I just decided to put him back into the scepter that Rouge was holding that matches her chest that's made of one polygon. Radical Highway! Welcome to the stage of all time. I'm of course talking about the level in which you must navigate through the streets of New York. Better get your fucking Google Maps out, because this shit is going to take you a while. I hope you're not going for an S rank in Act 1, by the way, because good fucking luck without Doomwings. This level is very fast-paced, which I guess explains why this shit is called Radical Highway. This shit is so radical that it makes me want to commit several crimes because of how fucking awesome it feels. I guess it makes sense given why I got a B rank on this. Of course, it's only slightly hard. Handlebars tend to hang over the void, like, a lot. There's a shit ton of boosting, so you better have some rings ready, and there's a lot of moving around that you have to do in the drug-filled section, but it's one of the best drug sections in this game, even though it's one of the shortest. I do like the street signs that say things such as, Amigo, Beyond Another World, and my personal favorite, Freedom Brother. Act 2's got the hole in the wall, except the hole just isn't there. There's also fucking water tornadoes for some reason, because yeah, New York City totally has tornadoes, let alone in fucking cyberspace. Don't go near them, otherwise you're gonna get bopped like you just got hit with the MILF chest. And watch out for the floating pieces of highway that like to turn in all directions like they're the rotating logs from Noki Bay in Super Mario Sunshine. The vomit chamber is here too, so don't throw it right before the finish line, okay? Yeah, so based on all of these things, this level just wants to make you Alt F4 at a moment's notice. It's so fucking radical that it makes me want to uninstall. The final boss of the game is also here too, so I really hope that you thought you were done, because this is motivation. This boss puts all of Shadow's Doom abilities to the test, using Doom Surf to throw shit at Devil Doom, and using Doom Morph to traverse what can only be described as the Aether Dimension's floating island, Shadow the Hedgehog edition. And just when you think you've killed the fucker who is just a fucking fat guy, he ascends and becomes a bigger fat guy known as an ugly bastard, and Shadow ascends into his angel form to do the entire fight again, whilst a cruel angel Thesis plays in the background. Phase 2 follows similar patterns to that of Phase 1. You're still launching stuff at him, you're still chasing him, and you're still coping with the fact that it's so radical, bro. I think it's still a pretty good end fight, as it puts all of Shadow's utility on display, and does require some good gameplay, cause well, if you run out of rings, then you're gonna plummet to your death. Thus, Black Doom is gonna sit down on your face. And unlike most scenarios in life, this time it's gonna hurt. Overall, that covers the world of Shadow Generations. It's full of life and character, with something to do and discover around every corner. White Space has loads of stuff to do, be it collecting machine pieces or treasure chests, or simply completing levels for S ranks or better times. The stage selection is also really good too, and I honestly wish they took another level or two and added it to the roster. I would have really loved to have seen Pumpkin Hill here, man. I want to hear that soundtrack in a modern game, damn it. And the boss fights, albeit fairly simple, are still pretty cool and fun to play. Even so, this game does have its fair share of issues, and I do want to touch on them. So, let's now talk about the good and bad of Shadow Generations. Now, most of my grips with this game are pretty small, mostly focusing on little details that probably aren't going to get changed, but I do want to touch on them anyway because I feel that they're important. I find that the difficulty of this game, for the most part, leans on the easier side of things. There are some rare exceptions though, and the most notable of this is something that I mentioned earlier. As you might recall, I mentioned that both acts of each stage have the ability to be played both with and without Doomwings after beating the game for the first time, and this is required to be S ranked for 100% completion. And while most of these acts are pretty simple, regardless of what you pick, there's one in particular that seems harder than the rest, and that is the no Doomwing version of Radical Highway Act 1. I feel that Sega overlooked the idea that a level design with the intent being that you're gonna have Doomwings wouldn't really work that great for getting an S rank if you don't have Doomwings. You basically have to play this level to near perfection on a super fast route if you even want a chance at getting an S rank. This feels like one of the hardest levels in the game to master and to get a good rank on, and it sucks that this is the case. I would have liked for purchasable skills for Shadow, similar to how Sonic can do this with abilities from Omochao in the base game. It would help make the game a little more interesting and add some flair. It would also help solve that difficulty issue that I mentioned a moment ago. The Doom abilities sort of make up for this, but it would still be a nice touch. As much as I hated some of the out-of-the-way ordinary challenge acts from Sonic Generations, I would have liked to have seen a little more variety with the challenge acts found in Shadow Generations. This isn't to say that the challenge acts that are there are bad, they're actually pretty decent, but I would have liked to have seen something involving Rouge or Big the Cat, something along those lines. And lastly, I feel that the added collectibles in some areas are a little too much, like the collection keys as an example. Adding them to every stage is a little bit odd. To the regular stages, sure, but why the challenge acts? It forces more game time to spend on collecting things, which isn't a bad thing per se, depending on how it's executed. This collectibles bit extends into Sonic Generations as well, because in addition to the 5 red rings you have to get per act, you must also find 3 Chao figures in each act as well. And these Chao figures, from what I've seen, tend to be located on the faster routes of these levels. You know, the ones that most people are probably going to miss. This does incentivize the player choosing other routes and getting faster times, so this isn't necessarily a huge deal. Regardless, I just feel that they added more collectibles into this title that I don't really feel were necessary. Now, again, this is just me nitpicking a little bit, but like I said, these are very small issues that probably aren't going to be a big of a deal, but it's still important to bring them up. Even so, Shadow Generations is an incredible showing of what a proper DLC expansion and/or Shadow game made in the modern era would look like. Filled with incredible levels, each having their own feel and character, packed with fun, challenging, and thrilling gameplay that makes me want to come back for more, and a story that, while it might be a little on the basic side, it ties into its remastered cousin perfectly. Shadow Generations is one of the best Sonic games to have released in recent memory, and is in many ways a much more enjoyable experience compared to Sonic Generations and Sonic Frontiers, and far better than Sonic Forces. This is a must-grab game for anyone who's looking to have a blast playing a fast-paced, action-packed platformer, and trying out a different side of the Sonic franchise and seeing what it's all about. As always, my name is Planet Power Sauce. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.